The AFC North will have a lot of new quarterbacks. I think Shedeur Sanders can have more impact than Aaron Rodgers. You heard me. I'll tell you why in just a second on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, that is a fact. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. We appreciate you joining us and spending 30 minutes with us each and every day here on the show. We have Kevin Ostriker from Locked On Ravens, as always, here on Tuesdays. He's going to ride shotgun with us and tell us everything we need to know about these topics from around the NFL. Make sure you catch us wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen. We will be there, and we are free to subscribe to. The everydayers know that because they're here every day. And if you're new here, you can be back every day too. All you got to do is come back. But we got to give you a reason to do that, and that's what Kevin and I are going to do today. We're going to end up talking about the Bills, quiet but confident. Yep, I'm still on my I was wrong about Buffalo tour. We're going to make sure we give them their flowers. Right in the middle, will Mike Vrabel pivot from Stefon Diggs? Not that Stefon's doing anything that a lot of us wouldn't do, being with Cardi B and a whole bunch of other bikini-clad women on a boat. I don't know about the pink dust. I don't know what it was, but I do know Stefon Diggs has a way of being that might not be the best thing for a young team like New England, especially with a no-nonsense coach like Mike Vrabel. We're going to start at the very top in a division that Kevin Ostriker is super used to, and I promise I did not do this on purpose to end up in the NFC North, because I will do that, and if I do, I'll tell you that's exactly what I'm doing, and usually I'm trying to start some beef too, or some playful barbershop beef, but right now it's not about beef. It's about me sitting around pondering in my mind, wondering, are the Cleveland Browns actually better off at quarterback than the Pittsburgh Steelers? Now, before you bust out laughing at me, Kevin Ostriker, I'm going to give you the reason why. It's because at the very least, there's blue sky, unless it's Joe Flacco, with those young guys that Cleveland has, especially the one that everybody's going to want to see in Shedeur. Even if Aaron Rodgers plays well this year, he ain't going to beat those top four quarterbacks in the AFC. And then Pittsburgh's going to be looking for a quarterback again next year. That's why I think the Steelers might not be in as good a shape at quarterback as they believe, and Cleveland might not be as bad as they believe.
Yeah, I mean, for now, the Steelers part of this is Aaron Rodgers is clearly not prime Aaron Rodgers. He's far from it. And, I think he is the best option they have, but that option is not on their roster. And so, when you talk about, well, the Steelers with Aaron Rodgers, no, there's no Steelers with Aaron Rodgers because it hasn't happened yet, and there's no guarantee it does happen. Like, that's the thing. And so that's why we're hearing rumblings of like, oh, is Kirk Cousins like their plan B? Is he on the Steelers' radar? Like, what are they doing? We are in June. And the Steelers still have not resolved their quarterback position. And maybe it is Mason Rudolph. Maybe they do nothing, and I think that'd be a mistake. Maybe it happens. And so when you want to compare these two, like obviously we're taking Baltimore and Cincinnati out of this in that division because they have their guys.
Absolutely have their people.
If the season were to start today, I would say Cleveland is better off at the quarterback position because at least Cleveland has options at the quarterback spot. And honestly, right now, I think Joe Flacco, who I would start for them week one, if we're talking about if they want to win, I think that's their best option. Unless Shedeur goes out there, Dylan Gabriel goes out there and lights the world on fire. Right. I still think Joe has something left in the tank here. At least I think he's better than Mason Rudolph. So I think for now, until Pittsburgh gets their quarterback situation figured out, I'm not really looking at them as a threat right now. And even with a guy like Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins, how much is that going to improve them based off of what we last saw to those two guys?
And that is the point that I'm trying to make. There's blue sky in Cleveland. Not so much in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's talking about drafting a dude in next year or the year after that. Listen to Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers talk about their quarterback situation and specifically Aaron Rodgers.
All this is adding up to Aaron Rodgers was probably dealing with some stuff or doing whatever he does to get himself together before an NFL season and is probably going to sign maybe after this week of OTAs. That's the projection that I see right there for now. But, for the Steelers, again, I've emphasized for a while, like for me, this was not the move that I thought the Steelers should have gone with. And granted, this apparently was like their second option, maybe after Justin Fields. They offered Justin Fields. The plan was to keep him around, and then as the bridge guy. The ultimate plan, as always, again, this is a bridge year. I think that's the thing that I want fans to grasp about this. Every time that they start to talk about it, they're like, "Why is this happening? Like, why are they committing to this guy like as if he's the franchise guy? He's not the franchise guy." And I think that's what people have to remember. But there still are legitimate concerns as far as can he still, can he get back to playing at a level that helps a team win?
You see, he said it. He's not the franchise guy. He's an older veteran. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers will be in the same situation with Kirk Cousins, because in 2025, they'll still be looking for a quarterback. So, Kevin, people wonder, like, okay, wait, it's about this year. It's about being present. That's one of the things you always say. But everyone in their minds wants to get rid of the anxiety of worrying about the future, especially when you're a team like Cleveland that just gave away $250 million to a dude that hasn't played, hasn't been able to solve. Cleveland has more worn jerseys at the quarterback position in the last 30 years than any organization in the NFL. These people have long suffered, Kevin, and they want a long-term solution, somebody who's 21 years old. I remember when Bernie was up there. They knew they had a guy for a long time. That's what people want to get back to.
Yeah, and that's what every team wants. I mean, me covering the Ravens and obviously Jake and James over there in Cincinnati, in that division, like, we have the guys that we're going to be covering for the next handful of years, hopefully for those two franchises until those guys retire. But for a team like Pittsburgh, who had, they've had their fair share of really good quarterbacks that have walked through that building, Hall of Fame talent quarterbacks that have walked through that building. But it just seems like there's been that uncertainty since Big Ben retired, and they really just have not found their footing, and they're continuing to just hit the, 1-year stopgap button. Oh, well, maybe this guy's the answer, but he's not, with Kenny Pickett, et cetera. And then Cleveland, I would have to have like a 3-hour show to talk about all the quarterbacks that Cleveland has had over the years here. But again, like, Joe is probably their best option unless you see that Shedeur or Dillon Gabriel is ready, which, down the line here, like, look, if they start Joe for the first 6 weeks of the season and, they go 2-4 or something like that, the season's already lost. I mean, why not throw Shedeur or Dillon Gabriel out there? Like, why not? Like, give the fans some excitement or something. And we know who was going to put those butts in the seats, and that is Shedeur Sanders. So I wouldn't be opposed to them. And look, Shedeur obviously would have to earn it, right? He's not going to just get this job off of, pedigree or college or, family history, whatever people are saying about Shedeur, which again, I still think is a bunch of baloney. But regardless, right, I think that for Cleveland, even with the 5 or 4.5, if you want to count Deshaun, because he's not really on, like, he's not going to be a part of what they do. Mm-hmm. Even with all the quarterbacks they have, they're still in a better spot than Pittsburgh is right now, and still might be in a better spot than Pittsburgh is, even with Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins in terms of the quarterback position.
And get rid of all of the rigmarole and rumors. Listen to Spencer German talk about exactly how they perceive Shedeur and how he's doing in camp.
Just about to hit the road after the Cleveland Browns Foundation's annual golf outing out in Rocky River. A couple notable comments made today by both Kevin Stefanski and Joel Bitonio. We'll start with Stefanski, who did mention that Shedeur Sanders has been taking 11 on 11 reps on some of the other days of OTAs, even though he didn't take them when the media was there for the open practice last Wednesday. And so that message of not reading too much into those things when we are there and what's on social media continues to be what Stefanski's kind of emphasizing there. And he did say, like, this time of year is more about just the team building aspect and everybody getting acclimated to what they want to do. What.
All right, there you go. So the media didn't see Shedeur doing something. Stefanski says, yeah, when
that's an aspect that he has to handle, but it doesn't take away from the talent that he has. And it's the same thing with Dillon Gabriel, where, like, he is, I guess, like, the other guy, where Shedeur, but, Gabriel was drafted first. So it's something that both those rookies have to handle. But, as long as they get reps and the opportunities to prove themselves, that's all they can ask for. I mean, if Shedeur takes the reins and has a great camp and great offseason workouts, then, hey, you know what? That's great. But if he doesn't, then he got the opportunities to show himself and he didn't perform. So we'll see how it all unfolds for them. But, I think it's a good thing that they also have a guy like Joe, who I know has made his comments on the whole mentoring aspect of things with those two guys. But still, you get to learn from a guy that's been there, done that, has won a Super Bowl. And I think that's going to benefit both those rookies.
Speaking of what benefits young quarterbacks, Mike Vrabel has some interesting stuff going on with and answering questions about Stefon Diggs that no coach wants to. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is brought to you and sponsored by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. That's right, man. As a small business owner, and I've done it 3 times, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. That's the hashtag hiring frame. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high energy hires. Post their job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, we're ripping and running through the NFL. I'm Tony Wiggins. He is Kevin Ostriker, talking about, in the first segment, Aaron Rodgers, Shedeur Sanders. Now we're going to talk about people who get the ball thrown to him. One of them, Stefon Diggs. Very, very good player, a little bit enigmatic. I always thought he got a little bit too much criticism for just wanting to win, kind of like Dez Bryant. But it seems like he can wear his welcome out somewhere really, really fast, too. And that's exactly what he seems to have done in some places. Now, Mike Vrabel has to try to build this team up in New England in his own image, and you got young guys that look up to people, and maybe seeing a dude bouncing around on a boat with suspicious stuff in a bag, and even if it's justified, can still cause enough problems. And we ain't even seen him arguing at quarterbacks yet on the sideline. I want you to listen to Nick Cattles as he talks about Mike Vrabel and the difference an organization has when they have a real alpha leader at head coach.
And this is where we talk about Mike Vrabel. This is the difference a head coach can make. There's a big difference between a coach that can lead you to a 9-win season and an 11-win season. There's a big difference between a coach that can get you to the playoffs rather consistently or get you to the conference championship game somewhat consistently. There are different levels to this, as they say. And Mike Vrabel, he brings a difference. Mike Vrabel alone and this coaching staff could mean 1 or 2 wins for you. And that's huge.
Listen, man, what a year of difference make. Because this time last year, me and Tyler Rowland were arguing that the game had changed so much that it passed Mike Vrabel a little bit. And then all of these teams started playing just like Vrabel's old team, running the ball, pounding, playing defense. And he came back in style, and now he's back with New England. My question is Stefon Diggs, just why? Just stop filming and recording everything. Well, if you're doing something wrong, you don't need to do that either. But at the very least, stop having those cameras everywhere chasing clout. Sometimes this stuff can get in the way, and I think Vrabel there's been some rumblings that he might get tired of this before it even gets started.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Vrabel's a no-nonsense kind of guy, and I'm sure there have been some level of conversations between the organization and Stefon Diggs on, what happened there. And he's someone that is, just a little bit over 6 months removed from a pretty significant injury, him having to work his way back from that. And hopefully by the time the season starts, he'll be good to go. And assuming that he is healthy, like he on the field is an asset. He's a good player. But the question will be, if, Vrabel gets tired of, whatever it is with Stefon Diggs, if that even happens, then that's a different conversation. Is it going to start, bleeding into the locker room? Those are all questions, and there's a very big possibility none of that happens. It's business as usual. Like Stefon does what he does, and, on the field, he does what he does. It's kind of when you're here, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And, when you're not here, you're doing what you're maybe not supposed to be doing. But at the same time, it's just like they signed him for a reason. They gave him some good money as well. But there are also ways they can get out of that deal. Yep. So we'll see what happens with that. But, for now, the Patriots, they're goal in bringing in Stefon Diggs is providing a veteran presence in that wide receiver room for their young quarterback. And, that's what they want to get out of it, not all the extra stuff.
Yeah, and like I said, he ain't doing nothing that a whole bunch of people wouldn't do. Maybe just record it. I ain't talking about the envelope or whatever that was. I don't know it could have been that big league chew. I don't know what was pink in that bag, right? But all I'm telling you is this. I just don't like the way it sounds. I don't like all of the chatter. I don't like all of the talk. To his credit, he's in fabulous shape. He's been working his butt off. He's been showing you videos of him doing that too. But still, I mean, some guys, the clout and the weird clothes, all of that is their superpower to play well. I just would prefer to just show up and just get it in. The 49ers are going to have to figure out some new weapons with Deebo Samuel gone, and now Ricky Pearsall is banged up, but they seem like they always find people that actually know how to contribute when they have people that are injured. The crew from Locked On 49ers thinks that it's an opportunity at wide receiver for a young player.
And I think the big news in Kyle Shanahan shedding some light on some of it is maybe some of the guys who were not there. I do want to get into some players that were there in a big opportunity for one second-year potential breakout wide receiver, maybe not the receiver most people expected to be the breakout second-year wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers because according to Kyle Shanahan, Ricky Pearsall has a hamstring injury, and it looks like that's going to sideline him until training camp. So hopefully just being cautious there, and obviously you want him to be 100% for camp, and you don't want that thing to linger. So they're trying to nip that in the bud right now, get Ricky Pearsall's hamstring straight. There were some really good reports on Pearsall working a lot with Brock Purdy in the offseason, and I know we talked a lot, Croc, about Ricky Pearsall potentially being a big breakout candidate for the 49ers and really for the NFL this year.
I remember back in the day when, and I'm about to mention some heavy hitters. I remember Andre Johnson was older, and in DeAndre Hopkins' rookie year, he had like 800 yards receiving and 1 touchdown. And people were saying they needed a wide receiver. I was like, no, they don't. He's going to be good. The dude might be going to Canton. He's parked up there in Baltimore right now, too. All right, so Ricky Pearsall was the dude that I thought made Deebo Samuel expendable because of the way he played last year, a little bit of a different skill set. Now you got to see if he can be the alpha as opposed to the dude that's sneaking up on people. That's going to be Ricky's challenge.
Yeah. And, this is it's San Francisco is a team that intrigues me because I don't really know. They're a good team. They have a ton of talent, but you're right. Deebo is gone. Seems like Brandon Ayuk's been a Steeler for the past year and a half, and it's just like they signed him to do a big deal, but he's even going to be there next year. Like, I don't know what the long-term future of Brandon Ayuk is. Christian McCaffrey, he's a great player, but we know the injury issues and concerns with him as well. Giving Brock Purdy that massive deal, they have invested in his future, and obviously George Kittle, who is still a phenomenal player, is also not as young as he once was. So there are a lot of question marks. So for a guy like Ricky Pearsall, he is someone that the 49ers are going to rely on to hopefully be like in that next wave of future weapons. Hopefully he and Brock Purdy can continue to establish a connection. And, reps are important wherever you can get him in the offseason, right? So him not being available, it definitely hurts. But I don't think it's going to be the difference between, if he's healthy by the time training camp starts, that is when I think you're really hoping to see that improvement. So, look, he's someone, and we've seen a lot of receivers have great year 2 leaps, especially after maybe not playing as much or not having as big of a role in year 1. And I think that Pearsall still showed flashes last season. So I think that for me, San Francisco is looking to get back to where they were a couple of years ago, right? I think that people forget because of the year they had last year that, hey, this team was in a Super Bowl a couple times over the last handful of seasons, right? We're not going to just forget about that. And to me, I think that with that defense and the additions they have made, they did lose some guys, but I still think that overall they're going to have a bounce back season. It's just how big is that bounce back going to be? I don't think they're going to be worse than last season or around the same as last season. I think they will be better. I think that they will be, to me, they're the clear number 2 right now behind the Rams in that division. But how big of a bounce back is it going to be? Is it just like hey, they're a 7 seed, or is it, oh man, they're like in the 5 seed conversation, really challenging the Rams and pushing the Rams? I think a big X factor in that is how Ricky Pearsall performs.
If you look at their draft last year, they did really well, considering that they were picking late because they were in the Super Bowl. I think they're banking on that because they also have Renardo Green, and then they got the safety, the kid out of Wake Forest. I think his name's Kamara. If it's not Kamara, it's something like that. But he was a very, very good player, and they let Hufanga go. because of the fact that they had rookies play. Now those guys are going to turn into super sophomores, and they have to have that same impact. Hopefully Ricky Pearsall, who's good friends with my godson who played at University of Florida, can heal up and get back out there on the field. Don't look now, but the Bills, well, they're real quiet, probably because they don't have guys like Stefon Diggs no more. But you know what they are also, on top of being quiet? They're good, and they're sneaky. And they're in an awful division that might get them home field advantage, and that's nasty when you think about the AFC. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Locked On NFL here on a Tuesday with Kevin Ostriker, my host. Kevin, one of the things that we don't really look at a lot is who's going to make the playoffs and where will they play those games? Because all of those teams in the AFC West got all of those Hall of Fame type coaches or coaches. They got 4 coaches that is considered in the top 10 probably in the National Football League. And then you look at the situation in your division. We just talked about Joe Burrow. We just talked about Lamar Jackson and how formidable that is in Pittsburgh, even without a quarterback. Guess who's sitting over there in that little division in the East with the Jets and the Dolphins? And they're just like, okay, whatever, man. And those up-and-coming Patriots, it's the Buffalo Bills, and they're quiet. And that's what they have done forever. You think they're not going to be good, and they play or develop, and they sneak up, and they're the number 2 seed last year. Listen to Joe Marino point out another player that's one of those dudes that most people don't know about, but he's a contributor.
You know, Cole Bishop is out there, and he gained valuable playing time and actually logged 464 snaps for this defense last year. And I like how he grew within those 464 snaps. Now you're entering this offseason not only with a year under your belt where you got a chance to play almost 500 snaps, but the offseason spent knowing the playbook, knowing the role, knowing exactly the opportunity. I'm excited for the possibility of it all coming together for Cole Bishop. And obviously, I think the door is wide open for him to be a starter, to be a 100% of the snaps player, and really, really take a big step here in year 2. And
they have a type, man. And I'm not talking about complexion. I'm just talking Cole Bishop. When you watch him play, plays like Jordan Poyer. They know exactly what they want when they go out and get their players. And that's why they've been consistent in the win and loss column.
Yeah, and I think that, again, the way that they have approached, I think, last offseason and this one is, you know, they're just getting solid football players, you know, and especially with their move off of Stefon Diggs and, you know, kind of going wide receiver by committee, not having that star, but having a lot of different guys that can win a jump ball or get open in the middle of the field. Like, that was their approach last season, and it worked for them with guys like Khalil Shakir. And, you know, Mac Hollins had a great year for them last year. But, you know, they're expecting hopefully a year 2 jump from Keon Coleman, for example. They bring in Josh Palmer, who they hope can stay healthy and have a big year for them. So it's not these like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase-esque names, but it's just a lot of solid dudes like 1 through 6. And it's kind of what they did again this year, where, you know, whether you talk about a Cole Bishop, who is not a Kyle Hamilton type name, but still can contribute for you, or their additions on the defensive line. I know a couple of those guys will miss the first handful of games because they're suspended after the Bills signed them. Apparently they found out about that, or maybe they knew it already. I don't remember the whole story, but, you know, guys like Larry Ogunjobi, who will come back in the middle of the year. They draft guys like TJ Sanders and Maxwell Harrison, who, again, are not these like big time names, but they're guys that were solid dudes, solid players. And that's kind of like when you have a superstar quarterback like Josh Allen and these elevators, like, again, the Mahomeses, the Allens, the Jacksons, the Burrows, guys that can elevate their talent. You don't necessarily need to have star wide receivers. It's nice. It's nice to have star talent, but those guys elevate everybody around them and make them better just on their own and by how good they are. And Josh obviously very much falls in that category. So Buffalo's a team, and you look at those top 3, Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, you know, Baltimore and Buffalo are looking to get over that Kansas City hump. They have not been able to do it to get to the Super Bowl, and they're hoping that this is the year that they can do it. We know, you know, I'm not thinking any team's going to challenge the Bills in the AFC East this season. I think everybody has them penciled in to win that division, but the reason that they are so consistent is, you know, I think star power sometimes can rule us all, Wig. We're talking about, man, this team needs stars. But in reality, yeah, you need those stars, but you also need those good football players who can help you win, and that's that depth I think the Bills have.
I watched NFL Network yesterday. They had an encore performance on. The Bills were beating the brains out of a team. And I remember last year at that point, Buffalo, I believe, was 10-2 or 11-2. And it was the most quiet. Them and Philadelphia were the two most quiet 11-2 or whatever their record was in the league. Because everybody was talking about another team that was 12-1 they received that whooping from Buffalo. That was Detroit. And this is the first time we saw Detroit looking crazy, right? With all of those injuries catching up. We think they're going to get healthy this year, and what happens? Their 4-time, 29-year-old center, Frank Ragnow, retired yesterday. Here's Matt Derry to tell you all about that.
Hi, folks. Big news from Allen Park today is Lions All-Pro center Frank Ragnow has decided to retire. That's right. Ragnow, who did not attend OTAs last week, and there was speculation, was unhappy about his contract with 2 years remaining, has just decided enough is enough. He wants to listen to his body, as he posted on his Instagram page, and thanks the Lions for everything during this process, but he's just too banged up, too hurt, and has been through too much. So at age 29, All-Pro center Frank Ragnow retiring from the NFL and from the Lions. Tate Ratledge, whom the Lions drafted in the second round as a guard, also can play some center and did during OTAs last week. He's likely the favorite to at least be the center this year. You got to throw in Graham Glasgow in that mix as well, of course, who has experience at center. More on Locked On Lions coming up later today, right here on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is a weird time to lose somebody that valuable, isn't it? I mean, you ain't going to be able to go out and find them. You better hope Tate Ratledge can slide over and play center if you're Detroit. But they run the ball a lot. That might hinder them. Trust me, I have a quarterback down here in Jacksonville that did not have interior pass rush protection. That could be a death nail to Detroit's plans.
Yeah, it's big. And I guess if there is a silver lining, it's that it happened now and not in August, where, maybe Ragnow went out there and didn't like the results he was getting from his body and says, hey, man, I'm just done. So at least it gives the Lions a little more time. But yeah, it's a tough time to lose a guy like that who has been such a mainstay on that offensive line. And, credit to him for knowing when it was time for him to walk away. So some guys don't do that. And, it's up to everybody to decide when they want to walk away. And some guys want to ride it out until they literally cannot step on that field anymore. And others just want to walk away when they're still producing at a high level. And for Ragnow, he's someone that, wanted to take care of his body. And I 100% respect that. 100% respect that. But for me, you look at the Detroit team that won 15 games last season. It's really hard to win 15 games in the NFL. There is a bit of regression here that I think that could happen. And it's not that I don't think Detroit is going to be a bad team or anything like that. I don't think so. But, this NFC North is really talented with teams like Minnesota and what they can get out of J.J. McCarthy. The Packers are looking to take another step. Even the Bears are looking to take a step forward this season. So the Lions have their work cut out for them. Still a very good team, a lot of star power on that team. But, yeah, you can't sugarcoat how big of a loss this is for Detroit.
Absolutely cannot. You want to find out who has an extra center Detroit can use this year in case they need one. Make sure you check out Locked On NFL Scouting, because Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino, the two hosts, they know the NFL better than anybody, and it will make you a smarter NFL fan. It helps you with your fantasy teams. Also, make sure you check out Locked On NFL Scouting wherever you get your podcast. Make it your second listen. Well, Kevin Ostriker and I, we about to go. We about to leave, but we appreciate you spending 30 minutes with us today on Locked On NFL. Make sure you check them out on Locked On Ravens and check me out wherever you get your podcast on Locked On Jaguars. Tony Wiggins, Kevin Ostriker, and Locked On NFL. We'll see y'all tomorrow with another episode.